My name is Marcell Hansen, and you're listening to Small Habits, Big Changes. Let's dive in. Here we go. We have a special treat for you today. This launches our year-long adventure into interview podcasting. So for the last year and a half, it's been mostly me. We've had a couple special guests, but now we're branching out and bringing as much value to you as possible with other like-minded individuals sharing their story, how they got to where they are today. And today's guest to kick off that series is actually a fantastic example. This is former juvenile inmate turned meditation teacher and wellness advisor and consultant. This is Courtney Thomas, co-founded a spa in the Colorado Springs that incorporates all kinds of really rejuvenating experiences, from flotation pods, sensory deprivation, they've sometimes been called, to salt caves, infrared sauna. He goes deep into transcendental meditation and how that really brought him to a place where he's at today. His practice is solid, his business is flourishing, and he's branching out to bring retreats to those of you who want to experience more of the same. This is really a great example of a practitioner becoming the teacher, coming from a place of in and out of jail, being in prison just as little as 14 years ago, to really developing not only a practice, but also a community that is engaging in this practice of meditation, of self-care through Ayurvedic practices as well. I think you'll find a lot of insight and see just exactly how someone can come really from a place of no freedom whatsoever, about as bad as it gets, being in prison, to really creating and manifesting clarity in his purpose and creating a life full of freedom for him, his family, and his newborn. Stay tuned because we're going deep with Courtney Thomas right after this.
Welcome. So I want to start off by just seeing, a little bit about your background and what led you to what you're doing today and operating the float house and doing what you do today, motivational speaking, advising, whatever it is. What really brought you, got you into this realm? Could you share a little bit of your background?
Definitely. So I grew up in Chicago, multiple incarceration in my youth, and it just came to a point where I no longer wanted to live the life that I was living, but I really had access to make those changes. And I remember being in the cell. It's my third prison sentence, and I came across John 14:12. It was Jesus in the red letters, and he's saying, not only will my disciples do the works that I've done, but they'll do greater things because I'm going to the Father. And I can't sit here and say I actually believe that to be the truth at that time, but I did have that faith. The faith, it was about the size of a mustard seed. And I remember praying. I just made a sincere prayer that if, you are who you are, then just lead me, and there's no place that I won't follow. And that kind of started my journey of seeking. I end up finding some meditations. I started exploring yoga asanas. That was just kind of like in a local gym. And I end up wanting to dive more into that. I found meditation. Oprah Winfrey was doing these meditations with Deepak Chopra, 21-day meditations. One of them was called Perfect Health. And what I was feeling inside is, God is within. And if we really want to have this experience, or if I want to make this connection with the Creator, then I needed to find ways to purify this temple. And I remember Deepak saying, if you want to experience perfect health, then come to the Chopra Center. And so I didn't have the funds to do any of those things at that time, but I made them an intention. And that desire got fulfilled about 3 years later, where I went out. I didn't know what I was going for, but I went out to Chopra Center, me and my wife, and we did a Ayurvedic cleanse called Panchakarma. And things changed for me in those 10 days. And I decided, I would keep on this path. So I started doing the Ayurvedic daily routines. The more I stayed on top of that, the better life got. And it was about 3 years that went by that I felt like it was time for me to be of service to others. And so I took it serious. I found out actually Deepak and Oprah was learning all of these things from a guy named Maharshi Mahesh Yogi, and that he had a university in Iowa. And so I went and did my bachelor's degree study there in Ayurveda and integrative health. And that's when I decided I would open the wellness spa, Luna Float Spa in Salt Cave. And that's kind of how my journey got sparked with all of that.
Okay. Now, so I have some questions now.
Okay.
So the mustard seed, let's go back to, sounds like a rough youth in and out of either juvenile or jail, right? You're having a tough time. Spirit, universe, God, whatever is like, use me. I have something bigger. Something inside you said, there's got to be something more, right?
Yes.
So when you first started, say there's somebody out there that's really struggling right now, maybe similar to where you were at in your shoes. Like you said, you you started getting into meditation. Like sometimes that feels really heavy. Like people don't want to, meditation, that's kind of hippie. It's a new age. Do you remember the first class you took, the first book you read about it, the first thing you did and how it felt?
I do. So then, we'll start with the mustard seed part. I felt convicted, if I'm to be honest, felt that I had more potential within and that it was things that I could unlock. And when I made that prayer, I was very sincere about it. And as I said, wherever you guide me, then that's where I'm going to follow. I've never heard of meditation or yoga to those things. This was 2010. That wasn't a part of my culture. Didn't know anything about the Indian traditions or anything like that. And that's where I was led. I made this promise, that if wherever you lead me, I'm going to follow. And so when I was hearing it inside, the first class that I went to, the first book was Rodney Yee. I believe it was Moving Towards Balance. It was like an 8-week at home yoga asana program. And I remember doing it. Had to move back in with my mom at that time, just getting out of prison. I was practicing it in the living room. And my friend was like, "What is this you're doing?" I don't know, something I just kind of picked up in the book. Like, let's go to a class. And so we went to, me and him went to Lifetime Fitness in Romeoville, Illinois, and took a yoga class. And that felt great to be around other people that was doing, the same things. And that's kind of where I started with it all. I felt that it was a great opening process. Then it was a little bit superficial. And I really like the authenticity aspects of life, wherever they may be. And so I started diving deeper in. And that's how again, I didn't know Deepak at the time. I figured, if Oprah is doing this, she was in our living room when I was growing up as a kid, maybe I should try it out. And that's when things got a little bit more serious and then a little bit more results in my life, inner and out.
Right on. Yeah. So it's as simple as you could be struggling, be inspired by somebody who's on television, a talk show host who has a guest on. It's that simple. You don't have to go to an 8-week course or a 10-day silent retreat or any of that. That comes maybe later. And it sounds like it came a step later for you.
3 years later.
Yeah, exactly. So it's gradients, like everybody thinks you just jump on the track and then there you are, you're balanced. It just doesn't work that way. And so I like that, it is a mustard seed, right? It's like any seed. It's getting watered, it's getting sunlight, it's getting soil, fertilized, and it starts to grow, right? And then it continues. Yes. If you continue to water it, to stay curious, like you read book, you started to hear about Deepak Chopra, and then you ended up going on this retreat. It's a progression, right? So I think that, sometimes I think people want to start on like the 4th or 5th rung of the ladder, but it really doesn't work that way. And that's really frustrating if you're like, why can't I get this? It's like, because you're trying to jump ahead 3-4 levels when you haven't planted the seed, but you want the results of the seed, right? You want to collect the harvest, but you don't even have
the harvest. Yes.
Yeah. So that's funny. That's interesting. Like we have similar paths I came across Deepak Chopra in the early 90s. And that was when I first heard of like TM and these different types of meditation. So I don't know if you specialize, but you favor TM meditation over. Can you speak a little bit to how that's different and really how you started in that meditation or how you started your meditation practice, and then what led you and kind of what spoke to you about getting into transcendental meditation.
Sure. So again, 2010 is kind of when the journey started. I didn't find TM until 2018. Always thought of myself as the restless seeker during that time. And so I was exploring all the avenues of yoga philosophy that I could find. Paramahansa Yogananda, I believe I read his book maybe 2000, and I kind of started his practices, Sadhguru, many other practices that I was doing. And while I was still starting to see results from those practices, it felt like something was still missing. So when I started my degree program at the university, a part of my program, meditation was included. It's a consciousness based education. And that was something that was intriguing for me. And so a part of my daily routine with going to school was that I was to practice meditation before school, right at lunchtime as we got out, and then again after school. So I had like one solid year of doing the meditation consistently as a part of my degree program. And it felt at that time that I was ready to be of service to others. So that was 2019, that 1 year that went by of consistency. And I remember going out and ready to open like some type of wellness center. And I ended up finding Luna Float Spa. It was already open for 4 years. I was going there for flotation therapy and for infrared sauna. And that's when I found out they were looking to sell. And the transition for me acquiring the business was like almost effortless, and it was very efficient. And the only thing that really changed over that period was me adding in TM to the things that I was doing. And so over the years, I was feeling the inner balance and the things that was happening. But right when I started TM was when I started to have the manifestation on the outside financially and things that I wasn't able to acquire during those times of seeking. And so I knew then that I wanted to be a TM teacher. I finished my degree program first. I finished that in 2022. And that's when I decided I would take the teacher training to be a teacher of transcendental meditation. And that's how I got with this path. So I am a teacher of that practice. And those are the reasons that I favor that meditation over other meditations that I've done in the past.
Okay. For those that don't know anything about TM, and like I said, again, I heard it from Deepak, I think it was 93. And I think it was one of his first visits on Oprah. I mean, it's amazing. I just saw a clip of it maybe in the last 6 months. And I was like, wow, that I remember that clip live. Like that's when I was just starting 93, 94, 95. 95 is when it really kicked off for me. And I was, read all his books, right? You know, and I started to get it, a little bit of Michael Ruiz later, and just like starting to be like, okay, and getting to the point where you got as well, where it's like, okay, the secret to living is giving, like to give back, right? Once you can get enough clarity, for me, when I got enough clarity within myself about my purpose, that was my purpose, and that all of our purposes, I believe to a certain degree, then that knowing was just like that guidance that you said, like, well, I asked like to be of service, and then these things just sort of unfolded. Like they don't always unfold like you're meeting someone. Sometimes they unfold in a dream. Or you wake up and you're like, I want to look into a class or that workshop, or you pass by a flyer and you stop and you look at it. You're like, hey, there's a 3-day meditation. Just little things that we pass all the time if your mind is focused on other things. But when you align with your purpose, it's like a light's brought on. It's like blinders come off and like you have full periphery vision. So you see people, you meet people, you see flyers, you're curious about things, you're dreaming about things, people mention things, you overhear things, and that all starts to fall together. So for people who don't know TM specifically, can you, if I wanted to say you were going to teach me just the very first step of kind of how I get into practicing TM, what makes it a little different from other kinds of meditations? If you were going to practice meditation in the mode that you use, this TM, in a 1 minute, how would you do it? Are you sitting down cross-legged? Are your eyes open? Are they closed? Are you thinking about things? Are you sweeping away clouds? Like how do you explain?
So what I liked about it was that it was a simple and effortless process. Other processes I had to concentrate on certain aspects or trying to eliminate thoughts, sitting in a certain posture. You know, the concentration or mindfulness part is not a part of TM. Again, just the simple and effortless process where you're sitting with eyes closed comfortably. So whatever comfortable is to you, and you're thinking that thought is a mantra. A mantra is a sound or vehicle for the mind to go within. And what that does is help you transcend beyond sensory perception, but you can have this inner aspect of what, again, I was looking for as kingdom of heaven is within, God is within. And so I was trying to find this aspect of how to bring the mind or the awareness within without forcing, without the concentration, with all the other things that I've learned in the past. And it's a simple 7-step process that we go through. I think the biggest piece is where everyone learns with the teacher one-on-one, and you're learning the mantra and how to use it properly. It's not something that you're gonna like learn this part on the app or learn this on something. It's an intimate process. It's one-on-one, and I like that as well.
Okay. So it's a specific mantra. It's like you can't make one up yourself. You have a specific mantra you're using. Is that right?
That is correct. Everyone has their own specific mantra. If you're a TM teacher, you've either been trained for 6 months, either away, say in Thailand, where they're doing it now, and they just started for busy professionals a 20-month learning program, which is what me and my wife went through to become TM teachers, so that we can learn how to give the mantra out to specific people and how to teach them to use it properly.
Okay. So if I'm still not getting, is it like a structured like a haiku, or does it have a certain amount of words, or is it one that like I can make one up myself, right? But it's
Correct.
but it's a structure. You would help if I consulted with you. You would help me structure it in a way that it would make sense, and then I would just repeat that over and over again.
Correct. And so it's not something that you would make up. It's not something that I would even. These are sounds of nature to bring someone mind and body in alignment with the laws of nature. And laws of nature meaning the intelligence that created the universe, that created the planets, the solar system, that created us. We want to have those fine vibrations and be in alignment with those. And so there are certain, it's kind of like a piano, A note, B note, C note. Those are certain vibrations that are in alignment with these laws. And there's specific mantras that have specific sounds, and they would be given to the person wherever they are at that point in life.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. It's the frequency, the vibration. Now, this gets into a little bit of the sensory offerings that you have at the Float House or at your center, right? It's called the Luna Float Spa and Salt Cave. And I'd never seen a salt cave before. I'm familiar with the salt rocks, but before we get into that, tell us about like some of the offerings. Now you offer meditation or some sort of training for meditation there that people can sign up for. Is that right?
Yes, we do. So we're in a complex. We have multiple suites here. Our TM center is separate from the spa, but it's right next door. So we do offer meditation. Our main services is flotation therapy. I used to call it sensory deprivation back in the day. Again, what that allows you to do is we always have our senses going outward, what we're hearing, what we're seeing, what we're hearing, experiencing, feeling. We never get a chance to kind of shut that down so that we can have that inward experience. And so when I tried floating the first time, it was kind of the closest thing that I found to meditation. The mantra is allowing the mind to settle down so that the body starts to settle down. The float tanks it's the same thing, but it works with the body. It's about 900 pounds of Epsom salt inside of each tank and about 200 gallons of water. And that a much amount of salt relaxes the muscles. You're able to float with no effort. And then you can cut off the sound, the sight inside. And after about 15 minutes, you start to lose the sense of touch. That's when you really have this internal experience, metabolic rate and all these things slow down. And that was kind of, again, the closest thing that I found to meditation and why I end up wanting to purchase and have this as a service to give back to other people.
Right. So we have a float house here, and actually I've had a gift certificate I bought for myself. I'm embarrassed to say it's like 7 years ago. I still haven't gone, but I have it on my list. But what I understand from it, since I haven't experienced myself, is that it's actually really close to a certain cycle in our sleep cycle. Is that correct? That where our brain sort of just chills, and like you said, it allows you to really go to a, is it a rejuvenative place? Is it like that layer of the sleep cycle?
Yeah, if you're thinking like brainwave functioning, it allows like a theta brainwave state to happen. So this kicks in the parasympathetic nervous system, and this is what allows all this settling down of metabolic rate and kind of like that sleep cycle. A lot of people that come in for our, they fall asleep, have different experiences. It really depends on the state of your nervous system and how much stress you're holding on to is what's going to be your experience inside of the flow tank. And also when you're doing meditation as well, because it's also working with the nervous system to settle that down and so that it removes stress. And so depending on, again, the stress level that you're having, the refinement of your nervous system will determine kind of your experiences during the floats and during meditation.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. And I was thinking of this the other day that a lot of people don't, I think the majority of the mass population, sadly, still don't have any idea how their nervous system works. They've heard the word, but as far as parasympathetic or even sympathetic nervous system, or how this controls like everything, right? That's going on. It's interesting. I was thinking, sometimes I've had clients and people say to me, like, well, I don't have time to commit to going to float, 5 days a week, or even 3 days a week, or even once a week. And I always think to myself, I'm like, you can never have, too much of a good thing, I think, when it comes to like recalibrating your nervous system. Like, I was talking with a friend the other day and who's been under an extreme amount of stress. His mother passed last year. And so for like 2 years prior to that, he was just running ragged, like just taking care of her. And so his nervous system kind of recalibrated to being very stressed. And so now, even a year later, I call it kind of unwinding, but you're kind of recalibrating your nervous system to come back to a state of homeostasis, right? And I think of even one float session, if you only could do one, it would be worth it, because if it brings you back closer to that calibration point that is homeostasis, then it might lead you to do second one, just like a meditation. Like, you do it once, if you get any sort of like juice from it, or any levity, or any inspiration, or any clarity, that little bit is the gradient that you needed in order to maybe get you to the next one. So do you find that there's a sweet spot that people come and do floats once a week, twice a week? What's your experience so far since you've been with the center?
Yeah, we have a select amount of members who definitely come about a once a week time. When I first started, I was maybe doing it like once a month. It wasn't that I didn't want to come more. I was a student. Financially, I just wasn't in a place to kind of do those things. I knew the benefits, and so I would invest in that. And it was probably like once a month when I was doing it. Right now, I mean, I own the space, so I do it quite often. But my meditation practice is key for me. I do kind of take priority over that before I'm even doing my self-care practice. But the nervous system is a big piece. The nervous system is like intimately connected with sensory perception. So this is how we experience our reality. And once the nervous system can settle down and then stresses start to unwind, leave the system, then we have more clarity. Our perception is greater. The awareness of those little things that you were kind of saying at the beginning, we see this sign or we see whatever else that may be there. It's always been there, but so much stress is on us. We don't even have the awareness to perceive it. And so and that was a lot of my experience. But when I went through like the Ayurvedic cleanse, what it was doing, they were using herbalized oils to break down toxins in the tissues, to remove them out. They remove them out through like an enema process they call a bhakti. This helped to refine the system and remove impurities and toxins. And it was only a 10-day thing that I went through, but life was completely different after those 10 days, which sparked this whole journey of me, going and doing my bachelor's degree in it and like creating it as a lifestyle to give back to others as well. But it was the removing of the impurities and the refinement of the nervous system, which brought kind of like a brain coherence. And then the sensory perceptions are more sharpened. And then the things that I had been trying to accomplish, the desires that I had, they just kind of started happening for me with least amount of effort and most amount of efficiency. And it was an eye opener for me.
Literally, yeah. I think it's really cool, like, to hear someone else have that experience, because it's interesting that it came from Deepak, or a part of Deepak, because it did for me too. And like how widespread, I got to meet him last year. I took a friend.
Nice.
Yeah, we went to Vancouver and he did a talk, and still, he's like, I don't know, he's 75, 80 years old or something. And he's still saying the same things he was saying 35 years ago, when I first, like 30 years ago, when I first picked up on him. And there, because there's truth in what he's saying.
True.
And so it doesn't change. And so people think, like, I think some people think like it's just repetitive, but it's like, if you hear something over and over again, it does influence your brain. Now that can be on the negative too. So maybe as a child, you understand that getting in and out of incarceration, like, you might have been hanging around the wrong people and they're saying things, and then it gets into your mindset. It becomes a part of your programming. Well, for people out there that have a negative mindset, or like, I don't have time to do that, I don't have time to sit and do this or whatever, that you're programming yourself when you say things like that to yourself. I'm always conscious about sharing with people about self-talk is like huge. Like, it was Deepak actually early in my kind of spiritual journey when I came across Deepak, is like around that same time, I just cut out all negativity, like all negative talk. I don't call myself stupid. I don't say, why'd you do that? It just went away, and it stayed away until like a year or so ago, kind of started creeping back in. But it really was who I surrounded myself with. And if I didn't have friends who were talking really positively or doing things that were inspiring, I had Deepak, I had Oprah, and I had people, Tony Robbins, people that I would listen to, and they can become your soundtrack until you create one for yourself. I think it was Oprah said, and when I think of you saying about the mustard seed, is Oprah always said, like, you only have to do, she said, what do you do? Like, I'll probably butcher it, but it's like, she said, you just have to find the next right step for you. Just one. You don't have to like plan your whole life. You don't have to vision 20 years out. You can, but if you do one step towards where you're going, and then pay attention, be alert, be aware, and then that next step will become clear. Soon you'll be running towards your destiny, right? So it can be a long passage there. Can you describe, like, I'm sure in the few years, sounds like that you've been with the center there for a few years, a float spa, like you have an advisory program there. Can you explain a little bit about what that is, and maybe share a success story from somebody that you saw come in, and maybe a stressed out professional, what they kind of did and what you saw and what you witnessed on the other side that was beneficial to them, just so people have an idea.
So the spa's been open for 4 years, actually July 15th. So we opened right in the midst of COVID 2020. And at that time, I felt like people wanted a way to just kind of zone out from that. Like, the aspect that I have at the spa, they're more relaxation based. They weren't necessarily the core tools to help me to acquire the space and things like that, but they were the, additions to help to refine the system, help to purify the system. But what I was using were what we call consciousness based technology. And we're using consciousness to develop these higher states of awareness. And this awareness that helped me to start to acquire the things that I had. And so when I started again, over these past 4 years, we're mostly been focused on relaxation based. Someone can come in for 1 hour, 3 hours, 6 hours, and have a full spa day. It was a good business move. That's how we've been able to expand. Now it's more about transformation. We're starting to hold transformative retreats. And I do have an advisory program. It's more based in Maharshi's information, because that's the things that I've used to help me to get to this space. And meditation is the core of those technologies, but Ayurveda is a big piece. And things like using light and gems, you might see something here I like using gym sound therapy. I do Himalayan singing bowls that we used here. Marma therapy is another technology that it's kind of like acupuncture, but we're using touch and consciousness where they're using needles and herbs. Astrology aspect, for example, like I use them for business, when to sign the contracts to purchase this business, when I should be making marketing moves, when I should be doing expansion aspect. It's about 15 different aspects that we can use in all aspects of society to help to develop consciousness. Most of my clients are mostly with Ayurveda, and they are looking for maybe diet change, nutrition change. I explain to them that I look at diet a little bit differently. So diet to me is diet in Ayurveda is anything that we bring in through our sensory perception. So that's sound, that's essential oils, using oils for developing conscious, using the Marma touch, different aspects like that. Herbals, food is definitely one of them. I have some clients that kind of use the astrology base. We're kind of working more into those things. You have to really be a seeker and already kind of have a higher state of consciousness to dive into those other aspects. But I see a lot of change just from simple, to say, adding in a daily routine. You sleep at a certain time, up at a certain time, so that you become in alignment with these laws of nature. Different herbal aspects that they are using, say, to have better quality sleep or better digestion. I would say those are kind of the most aspects that my clients are using is the Ayurveda aspect to make those changes. And that's where I started at myself.
And so they're making like it sounds very integrated. Like there's a lot of different modalities almost that you can apply to, say, someone who might have something going on with their gut, or maybe they even have anxiety is a big thing, but maybe they have a rash or something they're eating or something they're exposing themselves to is an irritant, not only vibrationally, but chemically or toxin wise. So you're addressing things like that as well?
We are. We work on, again, the diet aspect, the consciousness aspect, and energetic aspect, or like, say, for rashes, things like that. That's kind of the aspect we got the salt cave for. So the salt cave, it's basically called halo therapy. We're using a pharmaceutical grade Himalayan salt. That salt, we have a generator that crushes that up into microparticles and puts it into our cave. Inside of the cave, it's about 23,000 pounds of Himalayan salt just all over the walls and floors. But those microparticles, you're able to breathe those in. They get deep into the alveoli, the bronchi, and they start to pull out respiratory toxins. So I have people that come in with COPD, emphysema, or just kind of basic asthma. And then also because that salt is antifungal, antiviral, antimicrobial. And if it gets on the skin, it helps with different skin conditions. Things like eczema, psoriasis, dry skin, acne. So while I did my studies in Ayurveda and I can use these consciousness aspects, and we also have the supplemental aspects that we have at the spa that people can use as well, that they're more in tune to use, because it can just be one day or they come, once a week or something like that, where meditation practice is something that is about consistent, where you have to make this commitment to doing this meditation twice a day for 20 minutes. And the consistency is where you're going to start to see the results. So I wanted to have an aspect for both sides, for people who are just kind of coming in or who just looking for relaxation. And then as you get to know us and like us and trust us, then we can kind of dive into the deeper aspects of consciousness so that we can have better results.
Okay, I want to tag on that. So are you saying that like doing the meditation twice a day for a total of 20 minutes is kind of, is that like the ultimate goal?
The goal is 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening.
Okay, so a 40-minute commitment, change your life, huh?
Correct. 40 minutes commitment a day, literally change the inner aspects of my life and the outer aspects.
Yeah. Yep. I like the sound of that. So I'm curious now at this point, like you're running the spa, you co-founded that, correct?
Yeah, me and my wife.
Okay. And so you guys are both pretty active within that. What's next on the burner? Like, what can we look for? Like, what do you think you're going to add to it? Is something like percolating that you can share? Maybe it's a secret right now, but what's on the horizon? Like, what comes next? What new modality, what new ventures are you up to?
As far as the spa, we're in a really solid place. We're looking to get into a franchise model. We're looking to do 25 locations in our region over the next 10 years. We're working with some business consultants and things on how to bring that into reality. One piece that we have to add on before that happens is a bathhouse. And so we want to have more group activities. All of our activities right now are mostly single service, except for the salt cave, if it's up to 8 people. But we want to have more of a group setting as well with that. So that's what we're working on probably in this next year before we start that franchise model. But
when you say bathhouse, what are you referencing? What would that be?
so bathhouses, sauna, steam rooms, more social areas.
Like that you might find at a gym if you went to a fitness center or something that had a hot tub and a sauna,
hot tub,
pool kind of thing. That kind of area
cold
where you
plunges,
can hang out. Okay.
Yeah, mineral water. There's other like light rooms, light therapy rooms. And so just kind of having more of that group setting is what we're looking for before we do the actual franchise model. So that's what we mean by that. The spa's doing really great. And so I feel like personally, it's time for the transformation. And so that's why over the past year, I've been working on my personal brand, the public speaking, speaking on stages, doing webinars, doing podcasts so that I can really get this core message out on a wider scale and introduce people to these transformative aspects that was really the core to change from me being an inmate, multiple incarcerations to what I'm doing today. I really love the opportunity of having the relaxation and the spa, but again, those weren't the core aspects to get me to where I am today. And so I think the message of transformation and a message of hope, because that's what I got when I was in that prison cell when Jesus was saying that, because John 14:12, I don't know if I mentioned, Jesus, very truly, I tell you, not only will my disciples do the works that I've done, but they'll do greater things because I'm going to the Father. And that hope put a conviction on me that helped to spark a journey to bring me to where I am today. And the tools that I was led to is the things that I really want to give back to others. And so it's more about my personal message, telling the story, getting it out, providing hope, and showing other people that, they can rewrite their stories as well, just leading from darkness to light. That's what's on the horizon for me. And that'll in tune amplify what we're doing at the spa as well. I have working on a book idea right now, more of like a teaching memoir of my journey. So that'll be probably coming out sometime next year. And yeah, that's the most of it. The retreats are a big piece. Again, the retreat that I went through was one of the sparks that got me on this journey. So I felt like I always wanted to provide retreats. And we just launched our first one here, kind of like as our 4-year anniversary. It's time to kind of switch over to transformation. So we do have a retreat coming up next year as well.
Is there room still in that retreat? Is there availability? Can people sign up for it, or is it a book? What?
It is very much so. We literally just launched it on our 4-year anniversary date. So that was maybe 2 weeks ago, July 15th. So we do have room available, yes.
So do you have the date do you want to plug the date and the location? Do you have all that information already too?
Yeah, it is here at Luna Float Spa and Salt Cave in Colorado Springs. We've made a connection with the Broadmoor Hotel. We're right in 5 minutes from the Broadmoor. So like people would stay there. We would come here to do all the different activities. And since September of 2025.
And how long is it?
It's a 7-day retreat.
7 day. But you can,
yes,
right? It's not just silent retreat. I'm always scared.
Oh, it's not a silent retreat. Going to be talking and connection and a lot of knowledge. You'll learn the TM, the meditation technique during that time. All of those, about half of those technologies that I was mentioning, you'll actually be able to experience yourself while you're here at the retreat and immerse into all of the spa aspects as well. So
nice. And if people want to inquire more or find out, what's the website or a link that they can get more information for the retreat?
So if you just go to lunafloat.com, you can find my bio. You can like an advisory session. I do free 30-minute sessions to kind of hash out where you may be right now and what you may be looking to get into. And then we also have just a link on there for our retreat page. It'll be in our menu section. You can just click retreat and kind of dive into what all of that would consist of.
Okay. So you said 30-minute session you do complimentary?
Complimentary, yeah.
Okay. And so that doesn't matter when I hear guests on that specifically like mention Jesus or God. I know there's people that go like, I don't believe in that, or I don't know if I believe in that. Like, this applies to everyone, right? Like, so if they've not necessarily have found Jesus, or maybe they're just looking for something, they can still call and get a 30-minute free complimentary, like free, no money, no
Free.
obligation chat with you, and
No
you
money.
can help guide them to some clarity.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
And again, most of like, I want to kind of state this. To me, there's a difference. Well, simple aspect of religion and spirituality for me is that religion for me is thinking outside of myself, and spirituality was thinking within. And so when I was lost and didn't know where to go, it was mostly religion for me. And that's how I kind of started with the Bible while I was in prison, how I found John 14:12, how all this got sparked. But when I got out and the seeking continued, again, I was feeling God is within. And so if I wanted to make this connection, I needed to find ways to take my mind, my consciousness within to develop myself. And none of my sessions or anything like that is religion based. It's just giving you some tools so that you can start to access that God in you.
Yeah, I like that. I've never heard it put that way. So I do like that. Like, religion is more, something you're connected to outside, and the spiritual aspect of our spirituality or spiritual connection comes from within. I think religion gets a bad rap. It's very dogmatic and seems very secular. And it's unfortunate because oftentimes religion is what leads to spirituality. And so religion's got the bad rap, and spirituality's got the good rap. And rightfully so in some instances. Religion has done a lot of people maybe badly, been twisted a little bit. But you don't have to dwell, like the message to me is that you don't have to dwell on every single step. You found that spiritual connection through religion, and that makes religion very, very valuable. Like, you could find that spiritual connection through the salt caves. You could find that spiritual connection through like the float. I still call it sensory deprivation because I think it feels very potent to me, like cutting everything else off and just kind of going within. But you can find that spiritual connection. And I think of it as like the connection with everything is the connection with me. Like, how I do one thing is how I do everything. It's like, if I feel connected to myself, then I feel fully connected to everything, right? Nature,
Yep.
other people, whether they're like me or not like me, it doesn't matter. Like, if I'm sound within myself, then I could be of service, not just to myself, but to, my community, and then greater at large, the province, the country, the world. But it's not sticking. I know there's a couple of people that are going to be like, I can't believe you brought up religion. But the truth is, when you are a seeker, in my experience, and when you're looking and you have curiosity and not a judgment, everything's a tool. Religion's a tool. Like, it helps you to get in deeper to the connection yourself. Maybe sunlight is a tool. Meditation is a tool. Grounding, walking out on the beach in your bare feet could be a tool. Spending time with your dog or cat could be a tool, like connecting with animals or nature or scripture or whatever it is. But not to limit it to one tool, because there's a lot of tools out there that can help move those gradients along, go up those rungs on the ladder quicker, right? Your journey, you said, starts in 2008, 10?
10.
Yeah. So we're talking like 14 years. Your life is like done a full, 180, maybe a 360. 360, I always say, I think that goes back to where you started. So 180 is what I want to say, right? So that's a very really short amount of time. If we're living to be 100, maybe 120, like 14 years to really entrench yourself into a new way of living, like get rid of those negative messages. Maybe the people that the people that are hanging around that aren't helping promote your growth, and then inviting, like, sounds like your wife, you got a great partnership with somebody who's like-minded, and then running Float House, you get to see people come in every day who also have that spark, who also have that curiosity and that seeking energy, that want more, whether it's just vibrational, whether it's relaxation, whether it's, de-stressing, or just coming into their own. And you get to see them on all these different parts of their journey. While you're on your journey, it really becomes, it's like a community builder. And it really is a way to connect with other people, is by just seeking growth within yourself. Like, stop paying attention to other people's business, what somebody's wearing or what they're driving, and like focus on what's going on inside my body. What am I putting into my body? And it's not just food. I like that you mentioned it is this sensories. Like, are you putting on products? Are you exposing yourself to constant white noise or constant, like, if you live in the city, you got honks. What's that doing to your nervous system? And how can you recap and bring it back to a place where you are aware and you are clear and you can see signs and you can see things that are laid out before you. I love that. Thanks so much for sharing that. Is anything else, any other message you want to send out to people? I'm definitely going to check out that, because September of 2025 is far enough for me to commit.
I wanted to have enough time in between for people to kind of make that commitment. It's a big commitment, and it's something that can be life changing. I know it took me 3 years to actually get to the retreat that I was looking to get to. And so it's something that we're going to have more of, making some connections with like an Ayurvedic center that's close to my university, because a lot of my clients are looking for that punch of that detoxification process as well. And you have to have a medical doctor on staff. It's a pretty comprehensive service. And so it's not something that we offer here on site. So I'm connecting with the biggest Karma center in the US. We're going to start having retreats and things there as well. But I'm putting a lot of my attention towards educating and getting the message out, but also the retreats, because the retreats is where the transformation really happened for myself. I feel like that's where it's going to happen for a lot of the clients as well.
Yeah. And it is something to work up to. Like, some people might not be ready to jump in there, but like you said, you started on your own. Then your friend said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then you guys went to a class. So you added a little more structure. Then you ended up in a degree program with more structure. And then now with your life now, it's like, I almost find that, and maybe you agree, that the more structure actually creates more freedom. Like, because you have so many great things around you, it frees you up to like be available to other things, because you're not scrapping. You're not like just barely eking by. You like have a system in place that supports your well-being. And yeah, we have struggles, there's still tough days, or, maybe it rains outside, boo, first world problems, but you have this like structured sort of foundation. I think about it like a foundation of a house, and maybe, a plank or a roof shingle falls off, but this basement, the foundation is solid, so you could always rebuild, right? So it gives you this, I think of it as a freedom, like to do what you're doing is you have the freedom now, and it's a luxury and a great responsibility as well to like share your message and get it out as wide as you can. But you couldn't do that from a jail cell, so it's like sometimes you have to walk the steps, like Oprah says, like just make that next right move, and then open your eyes, open your ears, reach out your hand, like pay attention, and then make that next right move, and then zoom, from there to here. I'd say your journey has been pretty prosperous thus far.
Thank you. I think what you just said is probably my biggest gift. The biggest gift that I personally received is the freedom. So, I mean, we have a full staff that runs our spa location. I spend a lot of time with my son. I have a 15-month-old as my first kid. And so I spend a lot of time with him. I get to, make these free appointments where I'm able to give back and see where people might want to go. Free Vedic treatments that I do, I now go to India myself, where I'm over there for 6 weeks a year, where I can go get these cleanses done, where the first one I did was 10 days. Now I get the freedom to go over there and really dive within. And as a teacher, my meditation practice has increased in time and efficiency. So I spend maybe 4 to 5 hours a day just kind of doing my yoga, meditation practice, my self-care practice, all while the spa runs itself and the financial freedom is there. And again, I was just 14 years ago, had literally no freedom. And so to come to what I have today, that's probably the greatest of the gifts that I've been able to get back. 4 or 5 hours a day where I'm into my own self-care practices, or, most of society is spending 8 hours a day at work. This is my work day, is for me to put in the self-care so that I have the balance to go out and give that balance to other people.
I think most people, 4 to 5 hours, they're watching television. And that's a real statistic that's been around for a while. But so I feel good, because that's similar to me. I probably had about 4 hours or so where I feel like the more I can pour into myself and the more I can center myself, it's like I become 10 people because I can just give and be far more receptive to all those around me. But
Yep.
if I'm focusing on like, the bare necessities of like, trying to eat right, or, even trying to like earn money or, scrimp by, you don't have enough to provide for your family, like energetically, not let alone money, but energetically. Like you have a young son. So it's like so cool to be present when he's like transitioning through different parts of his development, like, because you can't ever get that back. Right.
Yeah.
And so thanks so much for sharing today. I'm stoked to learn more about your journey, and I'm definitely going to check out, and we'll have in the show notes all the contact information for you and a link that people can check out, not just the next retreat, but all the retreats to come forth. And thanks so much, Courtney. Now you said somebody calls you something else. What's the nickname?
Ketu.
Ketu. And what's the history behind that, or where did you get that? Do you mind sharing?
So I first got it when I finished my yoga teacher training. My yoga charya gave us all a kind of like a Sanskrit name. And when I started to research about it, it's the south node of the moon. And so it's a part of astrology. And it has a significance of kind of rebirth and going on a spiritual path, which fit my personality and what I was going through. And then as I started to look deeper into my astrological chart, it's actually in my first house, and it has a lot to do with my life, my lifestyle, and where I'm going to give this information out. So it felt perfect, and I just kind of adopted it as a name. So most people in the spiritual community know me as Ketu.
That does. When you just described that, I was like, that just sounds like you. That's how I see you. Like, that's amazing. See, that's another little thing that you wouldn't have just come up on your own, right? You are open, and along the journey, this presented itself, and it presented itself like, a glove that fits on a hand perfectly. Thanks so much for sharing. I appreciate that. And yeah, blessings to you and everything you have going on. I hope that I'm able to come out to Colorado Springs and check you guys out. If I do, I'll definitely give you a heads up. But again, I appreciate all your time, and thanks so much for sharing your story with us today.
It's been an honor.
Thank you so much for listening today. If you feel any part of this episode resonated with you, then please consider sharing it with a friend who may also find value in it. And remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And before you go, did you know we have a fantastic free text community? If you want more bite-sized health hacks and reminders delivered directly to your phone, absolutely free, then text keyword YES to 206-483-2960. Again, that's keyword YES to 206-483-2960. And we'll see you on the inside.